Here's Brody Brazil.
So basically, there's been two different waves of surprise following this Shohei Ohtani contract signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And the first one is obvious, right? The sheer numbers alone. 10 years, a full decade in Dodger blue, for $700 million, and what's believed to be the biggest pro sports contract ever awarded. Like all continents, all sports in the history of mankind. It eclipses baseball's prior biggest contract with Mike Trout by more than $280 million. Okay, that established, let's get to surprise number two, and it's the deferrals written into this contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Essentially, they don't need to pay him all of his money year by year like most contracts work out to be. They're actually going to pay him very little across the decade he's playing, and then most of it, in fact, almost all of it, the decade after he's done playing. And it kind of brings you to wondering, can they do this? Is this actually legal? And if it is, why hasn't anybody else been doing this? Is this contract with Ohtani kind of a trendsetter? Let me explain the scene here, and then I'll give you some thoughts on maybe or not if it gets copied down the line in baseball or any other sport. The deferrals, which, by the way, were first reported, as I saw, via The Athletic. You already know 10 years, $700 million, but we knew it would be a large amount deferred, like that all came out when this story did the other day, but $680 million deferred. I thought when they said a large portion of it, maybe 50%, maybe 60%, maybe even 75% deferred. Oh no. All but $20 million is being deferred here. That is a gigantic amount, which means while he's playing every season, the Dodgers only owe him $2 million. Now, don't feel sorry for Ohtani. In just a second, I'll tell you how much he made last season in endorsements alone. He'll be fine now and for the long term. But I should also tell you, this needs to be included in the conversation. Baseball has the competitive balance tax, which we'll also talk about what that number is and where the Dodgers are right now in fielding the rest of their team. If you exceed that number, there's different tax brackets you fall into, but basically the hit of Ohtani's contract, even though they're only paying him $2 million a year while he's playing, and he's essentially averaging $70 million per season, the hit to that tax only counts towards about $46 million per year. So the Dodgers actually get it easy in a number of different ways, the actual amount they're paying and the amount that goes against the competitive balance tax. So it's not just $2 million, it's not that low, but it's also not $70 million as well. Yeah, kind of makes you think right now, why don't more teams do this? As we stand here tonight, as I record this, the Dodgers' active payroll is $119 million. Now, we're not near the end of this offseason. There's players on that roster that are going to go through arbitration. So the projected payroll as of right now, if the Dodgers didn't acquire any other players, they're looking at about $159.9 million, $160 on the projected payroll. Well, that threshold, the competitive balance tax threshold, think of it as not like a hard salary cap, but kind of like a soft salary cap. You can't exceed it. You just pay for it when you exceed it. It's going to be $237 million in 2024, all teams across the board. So 160, almost 240. We're talking about just shy of $80 million that the Dodgers can spend without starting to mess with the CBT threshold. Wow. That's a lot more players that they can bring in. All of a sudden, when everybody thought, hey, if they land Ohtani, you're kind of cooked, right? Turns out, for the time being, they can go shop around, like with a lot of flexibility. And again, makes you wonder, why don't more teams do this? All of this is written into the CBA. There's no maximum amount of money that can be deferred with the player's contract and their team. So all of this falls under the current guidelines of the CBA. But all of this spelled out here, it just goes to show you. I mean, if the Dodgers have that money, they easily can spend that money. But you think about already the post-Ohtani years. Like, what's the psychology of a contract like this? Play now, pay later. play now as in the next 10 years at $2 million a year, but the Dodgers paying literally almost $70 million a year for the decade following Shohei Ohtani's retirement. And by the way, this 10-year deal takes him to age 39. Now, we know he's not going to pitch for next season. I'm sure he'll hit. I'm sure he'll be great. The guy could hit 40 homers. Probably no problem. But what about as the career goes on? Was he going to pitch the entire time anyway? What does a multi-purpose hitter, well, we don't even really know, a multi-purpose player, really only Babe Ruth falls into this category, but what does he look like at age 36, 37, 38, 39? What is the productivity there? Not to mention, as soon as he's done, 34 to 43, 2043, the Dodgers will be paying Shohei Ohtani $68 million. He'll be what, just shy of 50 by that point? It's kind of crazy to think. But that means that the urgency to win multiplies right now. In these next 10 years, like you have to be good, the Dodgers do, the entire decade. They've got to be good next year. They've got to be great next year. They also have to be great the year Ohtani is done so that they're not set up to struggle for a decade following his departure. They cannot set themselves up to fail. They literally have to go hard every single season for the next decade for all of this to make sense, for all of it to really count. Essentially, people think, well, the next couple years are the big time to capitalize. No, it has to be the next decade, every single season for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I say that because, well, here's the perspective all over again. If you were to average that money out and pay him out like per game this year, well, for the next decade, $432,000 per game. He's not going to play all of them. That's $70 million divided by 162 for 10 seasons. That's $48,000 per inning, whether he plays or not, across the next decade. There's also the crazy comparison of his $70 million per season as opposed to other team payrolls across baseball. Literally, Ohtani right now, and some of these will go up, but Ohtani right now is making more than the entire Cleveland, Miami, Kansas City, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Oakland teams, their entire teams going into this upcoming season. It's mind-numbing. It really is. And Ohtani deserves it. If there's somebody who is baseball's most interesting player, well, guess what? They just got the most rewarding and interesting contract. There's also these little nuggets as part of a done deal. ESPN is reporting that there's no opt-outs, there's no option years. So if Ohtani can never pitch again, well, there's no way to restructure. But if Ohtani comes back and pitches great, like for 7 or 8 or all 9 of those remaining years, there's no way to restructure the contract either. This contract is as is for the next decade. That comes to us via ESPN. The LA Times is reporting that Shohei Ohtani last year alone made $40 million in endorsement deals. And that right there is how you can see why this situation is so unique. Here's a player that can do something like this. Here's a player that can prioritize the deferrals of his contract so that his new team can go out to and afford to surround him like he wants them to do. And as for the Dodgers, I mentioned doing this, the risk versus the reward. How about Ohtani last year, and really in the last couple years? The LA Times also reports that Ohtani made the Angels between $10 and $20 million in advertising alone across the last several seasons. Each of those seasons, by the way, between $10 to $20 million. And that's the Angels. No disrespect, no knock. You know that the stage is going to be even bigger at Chavez Ravine, so the Dodgers will find a way to capitalize on his presence. But yeah, these are numbers that are just, at this point here in late 2023, hard to fully comprehend. Maybe in a decade they make more sense. But as of right now, it's a little intimidating to try and digest. Okay, so some final thoughts. We can't really judge this deal until 2023. If the Dodgers win 5 World Series in the next 10 years, well, this looked pretty smart, didn't it? If they win 1, I don't know. A lot of questions in reverse. If they don't win anything, World Series, if they only get to a handful of playoffs, I hate to say it, but Ohtani and Trout, look at their combination in recent times. But again, you can build teams. It doesn't always come with buying teams as the Dodgers are trying to do. I just want to be fair, though. You can't really judge this deal until it's all over in reverse. I think we'll get an idea and a trend like 4 or 5 years in, but you can't really judge it until it's complete. And then it has to get paid for by the Dodgers. I said before, this is baseball's most unique player, getting the sports and really all of sports' most unique contract. And that's why I'm here to say, I don't know if this can be a trend for every team or player in their given situations. Like, the Dodgers' payroll is so great. Ohtani makes so much money away from baseball. He's already made so much money through baseball and his prior contracts. He can afford to do this. He'll be fine for the next decade, getting only $2 million per year. He'll get taken care of. That is not a problem. And he'll also get paid well into retirement. He'll also get taxed heavily in retirement, but that was bound to happen at some point regardless. I'm just here to say that, yes, this is a great idea, theoretically, for a lot of other players and teams. But can all of them make it work? It just seems like it took the most perfect circumstances with Ohtani, where he's at in his career, what this contract's all about, what his prior money's been all about. It's just not for everybody. It sounds good to everybody, but it's just not for everybody. And again, the pressure on the Dodgers to capitalize now, to capitalize on every season through the next decade, wow, that just made the NL West a really tough place to play. But I'm telling you, I've seen it before in sports and specifically baseball. How you build a team is more important than how much you pay a team. They've still got to find the right players in Los Angeles. They still have to run into all the luck in the world of health and performance and avoiding slump seasons and other bad contracts. No doubt, they've got the unicorn. They've got a special player, seems like a great person, seems like a guy that you really want to have be the face of your franchise, so one of them. No disrespect to the Dodgers' other stars. But the point is, you really won't know for a decade if this made sense or not. And it's only a situation that could happen and be handled by this player and that team. That does it for this video. You made it here to the end. I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe so I can definitely see you back here next time.